The arena or the Colosseum is usually an integral part of at least most Yakuza or Like a Dragon games that tends to get introduced by the story and then later they allow you to drop by whenever you feel like it, as a side activity you can indulge in. You have a set of tournaments all with different rules or conditions and you participate in any of them for some kind of reward. With all the different games in the franchise, that ranges from money, items, and shop points which you use to claim items. The history of this side activity goes as far back as the original Yakuza 1, with the only mainline entry where it's absent being Yakuza 6. Yakuza Like a Dragon or Yakuza 7 has a Sotenbori battle arena, but I personally wouldn't put it on the same boat because it's more of a gauntlet of fights rather than the norm of choosing a tournament to participate in. As the series progresses, there have been additions or changes made to the kinds of tournaments you can participate in. Stuff like electric cages or flaming arenas can be seen in multiple games. For the most part though, and this is not to say this is a negative thing, the arena has remained largely the same. You knew exactly what to expect every time you went there. It will be a place you can go to whenever you want to get right into the combat. Maybe there are some minor exceptions that do bring something new, like the chaotic free-for-all fights in Kiwami 2. The Judgment games, as fun as they are, have no real arena equivalent, because why would a holier-than-thou lawyer/detective even participate in those places, I guess? As fun as it would have been, given that Yagami in Lost Judgment especially has one of the best combat systems, period. Then comes Like a Dragon Gaiden doing a few things that are truly unprecedented with its approach to the arena. Of course, you have several of the usual one-on-one matches, where you fight stronger opponents as you unlock higher grade tournaments. But then it introduces these massive group fights, bigger than those of Kiwami 2, where you have people you recruit joining you in these all-out brawls. This arena is like a combination of the normal arena as we know it, plus Clan Creator and the VR minigame from the Judgment games. Those who played know exactly what I mean, but I will elaborate as I go on. Clan Creator is a minigame in Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2, where you also recruit as many fighters as you can to help you fight for a cause, in a top-down defend the tower kind of gameplay with a fairly beefy storyline. They had a sick idea with this minigame, but the execution wasn't the best given how the gameplay isn't the most exciting, with you just sending people to different spots all the time and occasionally using an ability of theirs. So what Gaiden did is they took the best aspect from it, that being having all these different fighters with you, and now you can have them fight alongside you in real time. Not only that, but you get to level them up and also play as anyone you recruit. There's not many games in the franchise that can say, we have playable Gary Buster Holmes. Actually, correction, there's no other Yakuza game that can say that. This feature has insane potential, and I don't even know where to start. I've been saying since before the release of Gaiden that Clan Creator would have been miles better if they just allowed you to do all of the combat real time, and seeing them actually take a step in that direction is incredibly gratifying. This adds a uniqueness to the Gaiden arena that no other game has. Yet, at least. Generally speaking, I enjoy the arena feature in any Yakuza game because it gives you an outlet to enjoy the combat, but for such a long time, it didn't really evolve in any way, so seeing them do what they did with it in Gaiden makes me a happy customer. Yakuza 3 had a tournament where literally the only difference was you now can't use kicks or grabs. Good luck, have fun, I guess. Remember all the people that tell you, oh, just grab, to all who complain about Yakuza 3? Well, now your best bet is just the Tiger Drop, if you have it. I get that they probably wanted to make challenging tournaments, but I don't think taking away such simple mechanics like this for an arena makes for a good idea for a whole tournament. In some games like 3 and 4 as well, you also had tournaments where it's the same as normal, but you just have weapons scattered around now. Like, it's a nice small change for a tournament, but it's nothing you can really call unique or different. And then there's also some tournaments in games like Yakuza 3 or 4 that felt like they haven't really been tested. Like the weapon tournaments where specific weapons are just objectively worse than others to use there. I hopped onto some weapon tournaments for the video to make sure I wasn't just misremembering, and let me tell you something, the dagger absolutely sucks. The nunchuck comes close too. Some of the other weapons have redeemable traits at least. The katana's last attack can knock down your opponent depending on who they are. The metal bat can do the same despite me expecting it to be the worst pick. And then the brass knuckles are probably the most fun weapon to use because of how much freedom you have in knocking down opponents and barraging them with attacks. The dagger is the kind of weapon where if you don't have turtle spirit or whatever the ability is called, the one where you gain heat by blocking, then you're in for a bad time. I don't want people to to misunderstand what I'm saying with this video. This is not me saying the arenas prior to Gaiden all sucked if for some reason we came to that conclusion, but every arena has its merits and its faults. Now, I'm not saying Gaiden has flawless types of tournaments, but it does bring a lot of very entertaining ones. You're able to recruit fighters in many different ways, whether that's meeting someone right after fighting them in the fighter lobby, talking to someone around the castle with connections to introduce you to fighters, or finishing sub-stories that reward you with fighters. The higher your grade becomes, the more areas you can access in the castle, and the more people with connections you meet that introduce you to even better fighters. Another thing similar to Clan Creator is the fighter types. You have attack, defense, and support type characters. They all have different abilities they can trigger with a cooldown and therefore specific roles to fulfill. But you might also be surprised at how well-rounded certain characters can be. Higashi from Judgment, for example, despite being a healer support type, is absolutely broken and does very well as an offensive character. His knife can inflict bleed damage on enemies, which drains their HP that much faster when you already deal damage with your normal attacks. He arguably does better than most attack type characters just because of how often he can heal him, even outside of his ability with a grab button. This idea of having so many fighters you can recruit and each being classified as a certain type ticks so many checkboxes for me, and I just absolutely love everything about it. It's really not that different from collecting so many Pokemon and seeing how well they perform in certain situations. There's even obviously weaker than most kinds of people you can recruit, like everyone's favorite simp, Akimoto, who is a healer type here. This guy has laughably low damage output even at max level, and that just makes it impossible to win some fights because there's a time limit. It's an absolute meme that I'm here for and I want to see more of. This difference in character power levels makes for an interesting dynamic where you can do challenge runs or meme runs either by yourself or sharing them with others, and I feel like it gives the arena such a distinguished feel that is one of a kind. Backtracking a little bit, I mentioned that there is some of the VR minigame of Judgment, and that mainly comes into play with the projector in the middle of the arena. There is a lot of love put into Gaiden, and you can tell when there are specific tournaments that project the batting center as the stage, for example, or the Tojo clan headquarters. It's such a silly little thing, but it makes this iteration of the arena infinitely better for me. The idea of having different stages is so simple yet so effective. I honestly don't know how much I want to say in this video just in case someone didn't get to see everything there is to see, but there is so much fan service and I just love it. Let's just say there are certain opponents you fight and they bring back their themes from their respective games, and man, it's beautiful. Also, much like the Clan Creator minigame, like I said, this arena has its own storyline, but the opponents you fight can be extremely challenging. So much so, it actually might get frustrating at times. There's also a secret arena boss that is absolutely insane, and you will need to bring the best of the best if you want to stand a chance. And it goes without saying, but you definitely want to make sure Kiryu is upgraded enough. Honestly, the idea of tying a side story to the arena in a Yakuza game, in addition to giving it all this attention, turned out to be something that I didn't know I wanted this much. You could argue Yakuza 5 did the arena storyline thing first, but I think the way they handled it in that game is absolutely atrocious. And I'm not saying that just because haha, Leon hate Yakuza 5, funny meme, shut the fuck up Leon. I just genuinely think Yakuza 5 had some very strange backward design with the arena. It made no sense to me whatsoever that you had to spend hours upon hours trying to unlock it. And you have to do this with every single character, mind you, whereas in previous games and even later games it was accessible to you after a certain story point. You spend hours trying to see the story of this Raiden dude in chunks, but at some point I just kinda stopped giving a crap. There's a cute little system with the arena where if a fighter loses, they basically have low spirits until they either win again, or you go to them to motivate them, or you can just buy drinks for the whole gang and cheer everyone up that way. It's little things like this that make me appreciate it even more. It makes this aspect of the game feel really alive. There's also a guy you eventually meet that you can hand fighters to so he can train them, though if I'm being honest, this wasn't really that useful, especially when you get enough money to fast forward the process with the speed items you can buy from the counter. It might seem like I'm praising Gaiden's arena because it's the new thing, but even with all that I said, I don't think it's perfect. But then again, which arena is? It's been a month give or take now since the game's release, and while I think it's the best arena we've had so far, I definitely have a problem or two with it. The number one problem is the limited moveset for playable characters that aren't Kiryu. Now on one hand, I do kinda understand why this is the case for at least most of the characters, most of them who really do have moves that you can count on the one hand. But then you have characters like Majima, Saejima, and Daigo. Those three are DLC characters that you can also fight in the arena one-on-one. But the curious thing is that when you do that, they very visibly have way more moves than you're able to do when you play as them. It is literally the meme of bosses and JRPGs becoming weaker the moment they're on your side. Aside from that, Kiryu is also the only one who can use any heat actions, which again, I understand most of the characters not having any, but characters like Majima and Saejima at the very least already have established heat actions in the games where you could play as them. Why do they have none? It just makes no sense, especially for characters that you technically have to pay for if you didn't pre-order the game. Something else that I was disappointed in is the fact that there are certain characters you meet in the story of the arena that I was really hoping would be unlockable characters, but turned out not to be. I was most disappointed about Ukajin in particular because he looks so cartoonishly cool, like he came straight out of Fists of the North Star with that body of his. I wasn't expecting for every single enemy type in the arena to be playable, but I figured the 4 story bosses of the arena would kinda make sense after working towards defeating them. It would have been a really nice payoff. There are some really cool opponents in the arena as well, like Akira Yamaoka with the classic Dragon of Dojima moveset, that I think would have been fun to have. Another very particular gripe I have has to do with one specific character, Higashi. It's awesome that he's playable, but when I heard that he is, I and many others were hoping for his unarmed moveset, the one where he can just juggle for days. If I had to pick between that one or the knife one, I'd pick the unarmed one, no questions asked. They instead gave that moveset to one of the arena's story bosses, unfortunately. With all that being said though, I think the fact that you're able to play as dozens of different characters for the first time is a huge step forward in itself, and I hope that with future action games like perhaps another Gaiden style game, we see the system improved upon even more because it is a massive upgrade to an aspect of the franchise that largely remained the same for many years at this point. There's quite a bit they can do to make the experience even better, stuff like having some kind of story boss rush either in the arena, as a premium adventure special, or, you know, just as a mode accessible in the main menu at least. I think it would go a long way. At the end of this video, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to watch this video, and an extra special thanks to all the channel members who go the extra mile for supporting me. I'm forever grateful that you all enjoy my content, and I will continue to do what I can to provide you with more. What did you think of the arena in Gaiden? What did you love most about it? What did you hate most about it? Discuss in the comments below and let's compare our own thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, whatever that's gonna be. Bye bye now.